mistake like I did. All right, so welcome everybody. I am very happy that you are here, and let me see if I need to let anybody else in. Not join the zero? Okay, fantastic. All right, so today's masterclass, I'm going to go quite fast, but wanted to cover all of that essential stuff that you need to know. Some of you may have already created one, which is fantastic. I've heard somebody who's joining who has one, but hasn't done that much with it. That's fine too. If you don't have one, but you are interested in at least entertaining what it could be for your business, fantastic. Okay. All right. So let me get started here. I am going to hold on. All right. So today we're going to cover a number of things. First, I wanted to talk about the difference between an assessment style quiz and the rest. There are plenty of different types of quizzes out there, 12 to be exact, and maybe even more. Maybe I missed something. But if you are a strategist, consultant, or a coach, I highly recommend you look into an assessment style quiz, and I'm going to talk about why that is, okay? Then we're going to dive into the blueprint directly. Then I'm going to bring it back, this blueprint, to talk about what not to do, because those are the things that not many marketers or quiz pros don't talk about. So I do want to highlight what not to do so that you save a ton of time and energy creating yours. And obviously the special guest, the Himara, is going to come on and talk about her experience, and we're going to do Q&A. So let's get started. All right. First and foremost, these are the kind of reactions that I get from my quizzes. And I just wanted to take a moment to share these with you because this can also happen to your business. If you spend enough time and energy and resources, when I say resources, it's not about money, but more so your bandwidth and creativity, and you don't cut any corners, then you get to reap the benefit for years to come. Now, this work isn't all that simple or easy, but it's totally worth it. And these are the kind of comments that I get for my quiz. And the next one is my worst stats. This is my worst stats that came from July. I use MailChimp, so some of you may feel like, it looks familiar if you use MailChimp, but I get data like this one. I don't do any paid ads to my quiz, or I don't actively promote my quiz. And this is my worst stats. First, I got 147 people into my email list over 30 days, right? And then notice it says 0 unsubscribers. Now, I may have lost like 2 or 3 of them because I've been actively emailing about this masterclass. So it does happen, more active you get with your list, that's what happens. And it's absolutely okay because you're just keeping the ones who are interested in what you have to offer. So that's totally fine. But for this time frame, when I screenshot it, there was no unsub at all. And you also notice 99% comes from Interact, and Interact is the quiz platform that I use. If I have enough time, I can talk more about it as to why. And I'm also an affiliate for tryinteract.com. And the 1% came from my website, right? So imagine if I didn't have my quiz running in the background, I've been getting like 10 people a year through my website and my blog, not doing anything. That's fantastic. I appreciate them regardless. But if you want to have a system that's running in the background and you get to nurture them, granted, not all of them would be fit to be your client or customer immediately, but that doesn't matter because it's running in the background. I love that system, so that at least I don't have to feel guilty about, oh, I'm not doing list building. Everybody's talking about you have to build your email list. You have to build your email list. I don't have to worry about it. Quite frankly, if you can do the math, 147 per month is the worst month ever. The highest month was around the 253. It really depends. Sometimes I show up on podcast shows and talk about quiz. So it goes up and down, right? And so you can do the math, how many people coming into my email ecosystem. And it's a fantastic system. So I just wanted to share that with you. And this can be yours. You may even do way better than that. I've heard of people who do, like literally like 1,000 a month. 10,000 a month. I mean, of course, those people are running paid ads and stuff like that, but that is an option, right? You have an option to opt for that if you want to do that. So you may even get better results, but I just wanted to show you the worst one isn't that worst. You know what I mean? So I just wanted to share that with you. Now, let's talk about why an assessment style quiz. There are a bunch of other types of quizzes. You may be familiar with BuzzFeed style, like a trivial quiz. There's an IQ quiz. Learning and educational, that could be like you can create a hybrid of an assessment and learning if you wanted to make it educational. There is a product recommendation style, also a choose your adventure style. There are a bunch of them. But if you're a consultant, strategist, and coach, then what you wanted to do is to at least consider doing an assessment style quiz. Why? Because you get to showcase your expertise. Now, Humaira is going to explain to you what her experience has been, because she's done that, exactly that. But what the requirement for an assessment quiz is for you to have your unique IP, which is the intellectual property. You have to have your own expertise and your own take of looking at the same problem that other competitors are looking at, right? Otherwise, what is the point of doing it? That is the hardest part to figure out. But some of you may already have that. Like, for example, if you're a brand strategist and you have this core framework that you use for every single client that you work with or every single brand that you work with, great. Let's take advantage of that. Nick, you do design. You may have certain framework or methodology to approach specific type of design process. Maybe you can highlight on that. But all this to say, the assessment style quiz can be very challenging. However, once again, it is very rewarding and you get to reap the benefit for years to come. And because of it, those quiz takers that come into your world will be extremely impressed by your take on the problem that they're facing. So this is a harder and deeper style, but this is the style that I recommend. And this is the style that I've done it for my first quiz and the second quiz. All right, now let's get into the blueprint. We're gonna motor through it, okay? There are 2 slides for the blueprint. So I just want you to take a look at the first one. This is how I would proceed. The biggest mistake when it comes to the quiz creation process is for a lot of people to get started with different parts of the process. For example, you might get obsessed by the title of your quiz, which is important, but you may be exhausted by just doing that at the beginning and you run out of steam to do the rest of it. Another example is that sometimes, you get too obsessed about your questions and answers that come into that whole process and you run out of the steam. So this is an exact order that I recommend by creating 2 quizzes myself from scratch with no assistance. I have looked for YouTube videos and, blog articles or any other resources out there when I was working on them. But the problem was a lot of people talked about quiz funnel building. That comes much later, right? They are assuming that you already have a quiz that has a substance and meaningful and value packed. They're making that assumption to say, hey, here's how you create the quiz funnel. That wasn't helpful. I was looking at how to create my quiz first that is value packed, meaningful, and packs a punch and different from any other quizzes that are out there. Didn't really help me. But this is the exact order that I recommend. And I'm going to go into it one by one to talk about what not to do in a minute, but I just want you to take a look at this. So that's the first 5 blocks, okay? The next 5 blocks, it goes on. Here's the important part. On the top, you see create teaser promo content, right? It says create as a verb, but I also want you to start teaser promotion there. Not a lot of people talk about. It's almost like a book publishing process. It's the same thing. You're going to have to start talking to your audience or your ecosystem that you're creating a quiz. You don't have to give away a lot, but start talking about it. Maybe you can screenshot your process if you want to, maybe behind the scenes, or you get to just talk about, hey, this is what I'm creating. Be on the lookout, because it will pay off over time, meaning that people have to hear about your quiz over and over and over again. This is the time to get started. Then the rest follows, right? And that each step is crucial. Not a lot of marketers talk about this, but I want you to follow this exact step when you get started so that you waste very little time, you don't run out of steam, and you will cross the finishing line. Do you guys have any questions so far? You can unmute it. This is a cozy group. I want you to just voice anything you have before I move on. Anyone? Are you guys good? All right, so let's get to the next step. This is something that I really, really want to talk about. Super important. Can you guess what that is? The number one reason there's so many quizzes that fall flat. Can you guess? Oh, don't raise your hand and just talk to us. Just unmute and tell us.
Superficial. Sorry. Go ahead.
Not relevant to your audience.
That is a good point, but that's not the biggest. Of course, that is important. If it's not relevant, or if it doesn't, if it doesn't act as a bridge between where they are and how you can help, your end game, so to speak. If they don't jive, then of course there's a problem. Good one though, but not the biggest. Chimera, you had one.
I don't know if it's what you're thinking, but for me, it's very surface level.
Okay, well, because a lot of quiz platforms offer this new AI feature. I haven't checked it out, to be honest, so I shouldn't really judge. Full disclaimer, okay? But my guess is that it would help you to brainstorm, but it would leave you with that surface level. There are a bunch of those out there. What is your personality type when it comes to interior design, or what have you, right? So that could be it, but that's not the one that I was looking for. Here is what I would say about this. If I have to pick one, and the major problem with most of the quizzes out there is this: they forget to gamify. Mic drop. Well, this is what I mean by this. We're going to talk about the purpose of your quiz in a minute, but let's just say you want to get more exposure. You want your business to get more exposure to wider audience. Then you're talking about the top of the funnel, right? If that's the target for you, for your quiz, especially like the further away you go, so top of the funnel, you want to gamify as much as possible. The number one problem that quiz makers make is the fact that they don't put themselves in quiz takers' shoe. That is the problem. So the bounce rate could be very high in the middle of the quiz because they get bored or they're tired of reading blocks of text before they can even answer those questions. See, the tiny tweaks can make a huge difference. And I'm going to get to that in a minute, but I just wanted to make a point here to say that you have to make it fun, with one exception. If you decide to replace your intake form and switch that into a quiz format, then you are kind of talking to direct buyers, like they're ready to buy. In that case, have at it, like, go crazy, right? If you wanted to get into granular level of nitty gritty assessment style intake form / quiz, you can have at it. But even then, you want to make it an enjoyable experience. That's where they fall flat. So let's start talking about this blueprint, each step, and I will tell you what not to do. Okay, so the first one is get clear on the purpose. This is the section where you spend the most of your brain power, because you may have a few different ideas and they may be all good, but you have to get started with one quiz. Okay, I have 2. You can have 3 eventually, but get started with 1. So first off, you want to know whether you wanted to appeal to a wider audience on top of the funnel, which is cold to warm, right? Or somewhere in the middle, that, that murky area of they're problem aware, they're solution aware, but they don't know a lot about whether or not your business can help them. That would be attract and repel. The last one, I already touched on this. Replace your intake form with a quiz so that more people would be, interested in knowing about your expertise. You want to be very clear on where you are going, aka get clear on your target audience. But a lot of times people talk about get clear on your target audience and they just finish there. The sentence ends and there's no explanation. So I'm adding extra explanation to this to say, you have to really understand who you want to bring into your quiz ecosystem. Do they even know who you are or what your business is about? Or are they even aware of the problem that they might be having? Those are the things that you really wanted to get clear on. Please do not say, I want to cover them all, because you are not going to be able to do so. All right, so that's what not to do, right? The next one, to create the outcomes, meaning that, so what are the quiz results? Start from there. Don't worry about Q&A. You see at the bottom, right? Draft the Q&A. It doesn't come on top. Really get granular with the outcomes, because the outcomes that you're going to create, your first try will not going to be your final try. I will say that clearly, because let's just say 2 archetypes out of 6 are kind of similar, then maybe you need to cut it down to 5 to just be clear and concise, because that will determine what kind of questions and what kind of answers that you're going to have to create. So you have to really focus on how many different archetypes that you're going to create. Now, as an example, I have 2 quizzes, and both of them only have 4 outcomes each. But I've seen some other quizzes have 12 outcomes, 18 outcomes, 9 outcomes. Now, if you have to have them to make sense of your quiz, not a problem. But I want you to get very ruthless about how many to have. Here is the reason why. if you have 12 different archetypes, eventually you're going to have a 12 different email sequence created to cater to all archetypes. That's a lot of work. And Himara is shaking her head, and she'll tell you how many outcomes she has. So I want you to get ruthless with the outcomes. Are they really necessary? I want you to think about this, and you will revise and revise and revise to get really, really tight with them. All right. So what not to do is to have 21 different outcomes. All right. Draft the descriptions. There are tons of different descriptions that you have to go over. Okay. First is the quiz description. So you want to talk about what the quiz is all about, right? There's no word count limit for that. You keep on writing and tighten that up. Then once you're done with the quiz description, you wanted to create a shorter blurb that you can use for promotion, as well as on your website where you're going to embed your quiz. So you'll have a longer version and a shorter version. Okay, that's the short blurb is all about. Then you're going to talk about what the archetypes are in detail. So that would be the quiz results that people will get, quiz takers will get, right? I have a format that I follow that would provide a ton of value to quiz takers. And my quizzes are free. The only thing is that in order for them to get their results, they have to enter their email address and they get the results in PDF in their inbox. That's how it works. That's the mechanics. That's the minimalistic at a minimum setup. And I love it only because I don't need to overcomplicate the whole funnel thing. Okay, if you wanted to complicate it, no problem. But I'm a minimalist and I only keep what works. So that's how it works. And you wanted to start drafting that quiz results that they get. What's happening for the first 3 steps is that you are getting more clear on what you're doing with your quiz. This is the hardest part. And it's supposed to be hard so that you won't make all other mistakes down the road. That saves you energy, time, and resources, right? Okay, the next one is brainstorm quiz title. Finally, we're talking about the title because you're writing enough about your quiz, right? So you have a better idea of what the title needs to be. Don't start from the title. A lot of people do, and they get stuck with it. But as I indicated, it needs to satisfy 2 things. The title needs to be curiosity inducing, or otherwise people are not going to click on it, right? But also it needs to be keyword friendly. So you may have to do a little bit of research to see what's out there, what's ranking on Google. It doesn't take a lot of time to do this. So you work on that. The last step on this deck is draft the Q&A. Finally, you get to draft questions and answers. Now, there's a lot more involved with this task. Number 1, don't come up with leading questions. Number 2, do not come up with obvious questions that are, like, if quiz taking can guess what their results are going to be, they're going to stop taking your quiz. So there's a lot more involved in how you phrase it. I like using scenario-based questions. I also mix in completely random question that's got nothing to do with the assessment to break it up in the process. So they are going to have fun going through with it and they'll finish it. It's very psychology driven. It's a serious business, people. If you didn't realize that by now, it's a serious business. But if you put yourself in their shoe and you go through your quiz, you will know where to fix it. Some things are not obvious. That's why I'm here to teach you, guide you, and support you with your journey. But for example, I have scenario-based question that is that has a lot to do with IKEA media center setup. Why is it there? Well, first, it just breaks up the pattern to say, oh, why is he talking about IKEA media center assembly? Well, the choices are you hire somebody to put it together, you watch YouTube relentlessly so that you can put it together, you call your friends and buy them beer so they can put it together, or you read the entire instruction from top to bottom before putting it together. Different personalities, different behaviors. I still learn something about them, right? So I use that scenario-based question. There are many things that you can do, but for now, I'm just going to stop right there. There's a lot to do with how you ask the same thing. Make sure that those questions are very intriguing and interesting, and they want to answer those questions. That's the key. All right, so let's get to the next slide, if it lets me. There you go. All right, so then I talked about the promotion. At that time, you're in good shape. You know what you're doing with your quiz. You have descriptions, you got the title, you're working on Q&A. That's when you feel probably more comfortable start talking about the fact that you're creating a quiz to the world. Start early and repeat. Otherwise, people don't remember. Okay, but at this point though, you don't really have to pressure yourself to do a lot of things at all. You can just sprinkle in, right? Over social media or on your email, existing email list. You can be relaxed about it, but make sure you get started there. Okay, not doing this itself is the problem, because once you're done with it, then now you're like, it's done. I released it. Now I have to promote it. Don't do that. Okay, get started early. Then you can start thinking about picking a platform. There are many of them out there, but my number one advice, it would be not to skimp on it, meaning that pick the one that is specifically designed to house your quiz. Yeah, you can use Typeform. Yeah, you can use Google Forms if you want to go free and just wanted to go cheap on it. But that's not going to give you that much of a data, right? That's not going to be tech sort of the resistant, meaning like a tech hazard resistant. For example, I use the Interact, and the Interact has never failed me. It just runs. I never had to fix anything. It just goes. It spits out data. It tells me what's going on. It just goes. It's worth investing in that. Okay. Once you're done with it, you want to beta test. And this is what I mean by breaking it. You want to really battle test your quiz so that your quiz, like your questions, are generating evenly different archetypes in an unbiased fashion. So that means you're going to have to test them out. Just pick random people, more the better, right? 7 people minimum. If you can get more people involved in battle testing it, it's even better. So some of them may come back and say, I don't think this is my archetype. Then you might want to examine that, right? Here's another reaction that you don't need to worry about. It goes like this. I didn't expect this to be my archetype, but if I thought about it, it makes sense. Then you are on the right path, right? So be careful how you read their feedback. I'm not saying you have to take in all the feedback at all, but you want to battle test it. Try to break your quiz as much as possible so that you have a very slim margin of error. Yeah. Okay. And the next one is customize your tech stack. Now, keep it simple. Basically, you pick your quiz platform and connect that to your email marketing tool, whether it's a ConvertKit, MailChimp, Constant Contact, or Weber, like I forget what the name is. There's so many of them out there, but just connect those two so that when people take your quiz, they'll be added to your email list. That's the gist of it. Do not overcomplicate it for your first round of a quiz creation, because that is going to delay you from releasing it and promoting it, right? Okay. All right. So the last one is the email sequence. This is optional, but I highly recommend it because once you get them into your world, you want to nurture them. So if you can set them up in advance and keep it running, that is better. I'm sure you agree. Now, there are some people that I've noticed created 52 emails as part of a sequence. If you have a team or you outsource that work, you can do it by all means. I won't stop you. But make sure that this portion is not going to hold you hostage and not being able to release your quiz. So I would say anywhere from 3 to 7 is good enough. My first quiz has 3 emails going into it. My second one has 4 or 5. That's about it. Now, after 2 years, I'm about to revise that. See, you get to do that at a later time. Right now, your goal is to create one, hook it up, and make it work. So do not overcomplicate it. Does anyone have any questions for now? Any comments? Did I miss anything? You guys good?
Does Interact do all of this for you? Like, does it connect with your MailChimp platform?
It'll
and
give
then-
you like a step-by-step process, meaning that I am not a tech-savvy person per se. I mean, I'm good enough, but I wouldn't call myself tech-savvy at all. I was able to do it by just following step by step by step. So it guides you through the whole process fairly easily. So once you're in Interact, you create, so you would, embed some images, the quiz title, description, you will drop in your questions and answers, and it'll show you how you can connect. This answer goes to archetype A. This answer goes to archetype D. It's very seamless and intuitive. So that would be my answer.
And are you using the AI functionality in Interact, or are you kind of, it sounds like
No.
you're doing a lot of the groundwork on your own and formulating the questions and answers and archetypes. So you're not taking advantage of the AI feature in Interact.
Nope. Only because when I was creating them, it wasn't available.
Okay.
But what I would say about that feature is that try it out and see if it helps you to brainstorm. By all means, do so. I won't stop you. But I would still encourage you to really customize what they're spitting out. Because they are, I would say, like Interact houses gazillion, like thousands of thousands. They've been in business for more than 10 years, just focusing on this problem, right? Quiz creation. So they have enough data to probably generate an okay quiz for you if you use that feature. That's what I'm guessing. But after that, you still wanted to customize so that yours would be a lot more unique. You see, if you are going to create an assessment style quiz using your own intellectual property, the AI is not going to know what that is.
Right.
But it's a good start. If you feel like, I'm just hitting the wall. My creativity juices are not flowing and I'm stuck. Let me try it, by all means.
It has the ability, I've been on it briefly, I'm certainly no expert, but it literally can generate a full quiz for you without minimal input.
Mm-hmm.
But like you said, that's kind of shot in the dark. But it does have features that prod you into, what your goals are, that helps you kind of steering. So the more you put into it, just like ChatGPT, the more intel you give it, the better the outcome is. And it's pretty amazing. It's worth playing around with for sure.
Yeah, I agree with you. If it's available, try it out. But again, the most important point that I wanted to really emphasize when it comes to an assessment style quiz is that you are trying to beat your competitors by being unique. So you can get help from its AI feature to get started. Then you will add more meat to it.
Right.
That if I were to do it, which I'm thinking about trying it out and see, then that's what I would do. But if you only let this feature generate your own quiz, don't be surprised not a lot of people would come in because it's too generic. That's what we're trying to avoid here, basically. I don't want yours to be generic. I want yours to be one of a kind. Do you guys have any other question? Or any concerns or anything that's specific to where you're at? You guys good? All right.
I have a just on this discussion.
Yeah, tell me, Bruno.
My view of it is I'm using ChatGPT just by laziness.
Oh, you shared it with me, some of it too, and that's pretty interesting. Yeah, what it did. Yep.
Yeah, but I'm doing an assessment quiz now, so I the other track. I'm back on the assessment track.
Okay.
What I did is to tell it, okay, generate 20 questions like this, okay, and then generate 20 questions with this kind of difference and this kind of twist and this kind of that, and then generate 20 questions. So I have 100 questions now.
Right.
And with 100 questions, I can go through them and say, okay, that one is really good. That one is not good. I curate the response from ChatGPT, and that's already bringing more value because instead of being just the generated output, it's a choice of what was generated.
I love that.
And
yeah.
You can even take two questions and combine them and say, okay, both of them are not extra what I want, but if I take one answer from one question and one answer for the other question, it starts to be a bit more challenging, and that's good enough.
Yeah, yeah. So I say use any tools that can help you move along. I'm totally for that. So maybe, thank you, Bruno, by the way, sharing your experience of using ChatGPT to generate some of the relevant questions. Nick, you might consider doing that first and try that AI feature and let it run and see what it spits out. You can just compare it, and when you wanted to, when you're ready to customize it, you take in, what was generated from ChatGPT and swap out some questions, or there are ways to go about it. I'm more of a purist, and I'm more of in the sense, a tad bit egoistic person where I think that what I think AI can't. So that kind of knucklehead people like me, well, don't need it.
Can I add something to that?
Yeah, go for it.
So I use ChatGPT, and I thought I could get away with not doing my own sort of input or research, or it's not that I didn't do that, but what's interesting is that we as humans, we're flawed in some ways. And what I mean by that is that we have a knack for getting in our own way in a lot of ways, but also not to mention that our biases will happen. Like it is so hard to keep unbiased because we want to fit people in a certain category. We want to fit people in a certain product.
Right.
And what Michael has helped me do that is that, yes, ChatGPT did a good job in terms of like, hey, these are the questions you could ask, and here's some of the answers. It gave me a baseline, but it couldn't get me the depth. And you need the depth in order to create the most unique quiz that you can create that's out there.
You should have seen our session. It's well, no, some of them are recorded, or maybe we need to review them because I killed a lot of questions. I'm like, that's boring. That's like why that back and forth was quite interesting. But here I know that I jam-packed a lot of information really, really fast. There's a lot more that I want to say, to be honest with you. But the gist of it is that now you're realizing that there are a lot of components that are you need to be involved with this process, but again, it is really, really worth it. So the first stage, like a front loading work, if you cut corners there, you're going to suffer. So make sure that you create something that you are really proud of. And before I introduce Humaira, she can talk more about her journey, including the depths and the biases. There's a lot more that we can talk about. I just wanted to gift you with this thing today. So I get to work with you one-on-one. I do work with you package. I don't do work for you because of all these reasons that I shared. I want it to be yours. I want you to work on it, but I can be right next to you. And I will do work with your package, which is currently $1,000. But to get started, I thought that maybe this can help you. Now, Quiz Clinic is the name of this offer to have 1 hour strategy session. And so it happens, it's QC, right? The QC stands for quality control. That's basically what it is. You can tell me what you have, or if you don't have anything, we can brainstorm it so that you can start from the right point and you will move through the process. Or if you have one, then you're not liking it for some reason, I can provide the honest insight on it and also provide a strategic plan, including time frame. So for now, since you are here, this is the special offer that I wanted to gift to you. And there's the only one way to actually do this. Just email me. I'm going to put the email address in a minute when I introduce Humaira. But email me that if you're interested in, and we will book a call. It's not that technologically savvy process. You email me and we go from there, basically. But you will get a ton of it only because I get to only focus on your specific challenges, your unique problems, and we will sort it out together. All right, so now I want to welcome properly Humaira Actor. And you can take away. I'm going to stop sharing the screen here if I can find the cursor. So you can start talking, Humaira.
Yeah, I mean, I also was thinking if anybody has a question so far or some curiosity is coming up to you, I'm also happy to answer that. But from my experience, I've started, probably trying to do my own quiz for the last 3 or 4 years. Just attempted, stop, discarded, pause, started back again, and it's been going on and off for the last few years. And not until I started to create my expertise around my own framework and helping others to build their frameworks is when I started to, I don't know if it was a coincidence or something, that I met Michael at the time that I was looking for something, but it was a beautiful, beautiful journey in terms of coming together, that I wanted to create something that was really catered towards the person that I could really help in my industry, in my line of work. And when I took her quiz, I was like, how the heck did she know to that level in terms of like how she described, different markets, expertise, specialized and all that. That to me was like, it intrigued me. Obviously, it piqued my curiosity. And that's how I started to email her. And it's like, Michael, we need to get on the call. I don't know what you're doing, but your quiz is so on target it is, to me, it's kind of like almost freakish, like how closely she can identify who that person is. And to me, that's a classic, that's a great way to archetype your people, to see what the stage they're in. And sometimes you have to be able to know your audience so well. And I think this is what the quiz challenge is. It's like, how well do you really know your audience?
Well, I have a great example that I want you to talk about. So the archetypes, we only said outcomes or archetypes, right? But there's so much more work involved with that. Now, your quiz, first and foremost, I want you to talk about what your quiz title and the archetypes, the names that you came up with, because now that is also super duper important. You cannot come up with boring ass outcomes. The people are going to be disappointed, right? I'm just being very raw and honest here. So, Himaira, first tell us about the title of your quiz, which satisfies both curiosity inducing and the keyword friendly, and the names of those archetypes. Because by just hearing them, I know you all gonna want to take her quiz.
So the name of my quiz is, what is your entrepreneurial zone of genius archetype? Now, there are a lot of, like, what's your zone of genius type of quizzes out there. And for me, it was important to really distinguish that I'm talking to solopreneurs. I'm talking to archetypes of people who are, maybe in they're small but mighty. They have small team of contractors, but they're, they don't have a full-scale team yet. And then I have people who are plug-in players, who are maybe, like, for example, I have a client right now who's in real estate, and she's using, her real estate company to represent her, right? And she's interested in building her own product, her own framework and everything, to funnel people into her business, to grow her business and scale her methodology. And so I have those kind of people. And then I have an archetype called freedom explorers. So all these archetypes kind of go into like how they are channeling their zone of genius. I want to know.
It's very
I'm
unique,
curious.
and I don't expect ChatGPT or Interact AI feature to come up with those names. I mean, think about it, right? This is really important. You do not want it to come up with archetypes that are going to rank in order. So, for example, what's your IQ? If you're talking about what's your IQ about NASCAR racing, nobody's going to care whether they're at the bottom or they're at the top, but that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about their ability, their personality, their demeanors, or their, the business models. We're talking about those things. They don't want it to find out that their results is at the bottom saying novice. Like, that would be the worst case scenario. So Himaira's question, like, there are four archetypes, right? So
Right.
plug-in players, it's like a network marketers, real estate, the insurance agent, they're in the big organization, but they get to be entrepreneurial, in a sense. So they're plug-in players. They got small but mighty. They could be in a lucrative position, but a very small team. They got empire builder. That is the one that's going to set themselves apart from the rest of the archetypes, to say, I'm going big. I'm going to become next Tony Robbins, Gary Vaynerchuk, or what have you, right? And the last one is the freedom explorer. They might be digital nomad. They might be a yoga teacher going from country to country. Those names has to be unique, and she came up with them. You know what I mean? And that will set her quiz apart from other ones. So if you think creating a quiz is an easy peasy step, I mean, yes, you can if you want a flat and thin and less, like a substance quiz. Yes, you can whip it up in a matter of minutes. But if you really want to showcase it, you wanted to talk about it over podcast guesting or, any PR visibility to say, this is a unique one and you got to take it. You have to be proud of what you create. That is the reason why I'm spending loads of time about how in depth you want to make it to be. Sorry, I will hand the mic
No,
over
it's
back to
good.
you.
The other way to think about this is that you want to think about what is the long-term digital asset you want to build with your business, right? You have short-term assets and then you have long-term asset. To me, this is a passive list building, strategizing forever. Like I can turn it on and I can keep going on and keep just refining, tweaking, testing, but keep the same sort of structure that is very connected to my core business. A lot of times, like quizzes are built that has nothing to do with your core business. It has nothing to do with your core business. And it's hard to it's hard to have a quiz that just will get just list build, but then you can't direct them to how do you get them to sort of take the next steps, right? How do you get them to do the next phase of the business? How do you move them? And to me, that's really tricky if you don't have that sort of core strategy defined that you can direct people for the long term that fits in your long-term vision. And for some reason, I didn't tell Michael all the details about my program and my business, where it's headed and vision and what I'm building, but she could sense the strategy that I was building. And she immediately was able to connect me with like, okay, if this is the outcome that you're trying to get, then this is what you need to consider for these type of traits and characteristics. I don't see those traits and characteristics. Have you thought about that? And that was the part that I was like, oh shit, no, I don't. I have not considered
because
those.
You had a bit of a favoritism going on a little bit. You want to talk about that? You had a sweet spot for a specific archetype, but that was actually affecting your work somewhat negatively to finish your quiz.
Yeah,
right?
the disconnect was for me was that initially when I drafted out the quiz, it was very much towards like, oh, I wanted to weed out these people that are not a good fit for my program and I don't want them. But that type of thinking is good initially, but it's not, it's still very much, putting your own biases. You're very much putting your own biases. You never know. Like, I just never knew that Plug and Player could be my client too. Like, I can't discard them. I can't disregard them. Anywhere in the journey the clients are in any of those phases where they're freedom explorer or they're, empire builders, they could potentially be a good fit for my program.
Yeah, for that reason, you wanted to take care of all of them with your quiz results so that every single one of them needed to be equally high quality. And I feel like I was able to help you with that. That particular point, I felt like I really stepped in to show you what's possible with each archetype. When it comes to the quiz results. As I said, there's a structure that I recommend to everybody, and you need to fill each and every section to make it to be a very meaty quiz results, so that whoever receives, they feel like, my God, I cannot believe I got this for free. And now I'm going to just sort of bring back, you can keep talking, Himara, but I'm going to reshare the beginning part of my slide just while you continuously share your experience. Basically, this is that.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
And I think I was one of those people that I said, holy crap, how did you know that? You know, and that's that kind of intel, the psychology, the yeah, of course. The psychology of how do you know about this me is so I don't know how to explain it, but it's like that is what you want, right? Like somebody reading that and saying like, you get me, not only you get me, I believe you can help me.
Right.
And if you can level head that kind of trust with a quiz, then you hit the jaguar. You know, you're cutting through all the BS and the time in all the time wasting stuff that we do in marketing. You
And
know,
do you want to
yeah.
talk about how many times we went over the order of your questions?
Yeah, that was a grueling process because even that, like, you know, when you said, okay, number 5 needs to go in the middle, or a number 2 question needs to go in the 5 because it's too heavy. We need something lighthearted in the middle so it doesn't throw them off. There's so much strategic parts that goes into it that it's really hard to do this alone.
Now
That's all I'm gonna say.
that
Yeah,
work is totally optional, right? To be
right.
honest with you, most of the
Yeah,
quiz makers don't even consider that to be a task. But I task it with people that I work with. Number one, because that makes night and day difference in terms of bounce rate. I
yeah.
need to double check and see what my bounce rate is, only because I put through thousands of people at this point, right? Yeah, thousand upon thousand. So bounce rate is getting a little bit higher because it's attracting random people through Google keyword search. It's bound to happen. So I'm not disappointed about it, but you want to do everything in your power to really minimize that bounce rate so that they don't just bounce off in the middle of the quiz. And we must have gone over your quiz order at least 3-4 times to say, yeah, no. You gotta get them going.
That
You
was
gotta
about an
keep the
hour-long
momentum.
process.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
that
It
alone
was
was an
hard.
hour long. Yeah.
Yeah, but meaningful. And some I can hear that some people might say, that's not really important. Like I'm just like, who cares? Well, let it be. Let's see how it performs. Because that kind of a tiny tweak will make a night and day difference. I mean, it's a huge difference. And that's where I kind of come in to say, hey, it looks great, but it can be better. Do you want to? It's almost like this, the work, like you're working out with a trainer who tells you that you're like done lifting weights and that you just can't do one more push, but he's going to tell you to do one more. That's pretty much.
Do you mean the
my
time
work.
when I wanted to cry from my car and my kid
Yeah.
my kid in the background, she says, Mom,
Yeah.
it's okay. She's gonna forgive you. I said, what are you talking about? And then I realized I was doing that in front of my kids who could hear my frustration in my voice that I want to give up. I just don't want to do it anymore. And then
exactly.
and then I realized that I was at the tipping point. You know, when you get to the tipping point and you're this close to making it, but then you need that voice, you need that coach to kind of like, you
it's
don't
the
realize how
last
close you
push
are.
of that weight. Like
Yeah.
you go, I can't.
Right.
That pretty much it. But that's what it takes with creative work, because converting your expertise into a quiz as a format requires a lot of gymnastic moves, and let alone your mental strengths will be tested, right? Obviously.
Yes.
So that is the core message that I really wanted to come with. Thank you so much, Humaira, for like really sharing your real experience. And I'm so glad that the people are still with us. I know that it's top of the hour, it's past the 1, but we can talk and talk and talk more about this. But all in all, what I really wanted to share today during this session is things that most of the people don't talk about or don't pay attention to. Thus, their quiz like fall flat. And I don't want that to be yours, obviously. So if I did that job, then I've done my job. Now make sure that you reach out to me via email. Now I don't think I put my email address in there, which is not a smart move. But most of you probably know what my email address is. But make sure that you reach out to me, even if you're just remotely interested or just wanted to give me a feedback on this. I welcome that, of course. But here is my email. If you're interested in having that strategic session just to get your feet wet with no risk whatsoever, let's absolutely do that. But I hope you enjoyed this session today. Thank you so much for coming, and I can't wait to hear from you guys what you thought of it.
Thank you, guys.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming.
Appreciate your
Thank
time.
you.
Peace
All right,
out.
take care, everybody. Peace out. Peace out.